All right, everybody, you with your main man, Anthony Brogdon. And oh my God, let me tell you something. The train has left the station. I got a lady on the channel that I got 2 hours sleep last night thinking about this. And I said to myself, hey, now she can't hear me. So I want y'all to hear me say this. Man, I was thinking, well, I got to play it cool. And then I said, no, I can't play it cool because I got to be who I am. So then I said, well, I can't do nothing to upset her. I said, well, I hope I don't. Maybe she'll understand. And then I said to myself, well, let me change my shirt. I said, okay, I can do that. I'm so excited. Let me tell you, Strong Inspirations is on the upcome. Not because, let me temper with this. Not because I think more of her than any other guest. That's not the case. All these people who come on here who want to share some Black history with you and me, I love them all because they don't have to do it and they take time out of their schedule. But do you know I have gone international? I got a lady on here from Australia who says Australia was a Black continent. If you didn't know it, watch that video. I got a lady on here from Ireland who said that the Ireland people, the Europeans hated them, said no Blacks and Irish. Some of them were enslaved, and I don't know how this happened. They got their freedom, came to America, and then they owned slaves. Can you imagine that? What lack of compassion can you have knowing how you hated it? And then you come here and do it? One of the guys who came here owned one of the biggest plantations and had this thing called Weeping Times. Have you heard of that? Where they sold 250 slaves in 2 days. It rained both days. Watch that video. I got a guy on South Africa who says he lived through apartheid. Now check it out. Apartheid wasn't nothing but Jim Crow. And I got the great-great-granddaughters of a Black man who was enslaved. He was very talented. When he got his freedom, he opened up a car manufacturing company. Boom, shakalaka, everybody. I got the lady on the channel. I'm telling you, she's smiling. I'm so happy because her story is incredible. I'm gonna let her tell it. It's incredible. We all know this name. And hint, hint, we watched her movie last year. For some number of days, we couldn't leave the house. You know how you played that deal. I stayed in the store. I just couldn't stay in. But I watched all of that movie. You'll know what I'm talking. And she was one of the writers. I'm Anthony Brogdon. If you don't know, you will know because I'm coming up because of people like this that come on the channel. And you know, I think what happened was, and I asked her, she said, I vetted you, young man. I said, I bet, geez, you know what happened though? She saw all them other people on here and the content that I put out. She want to be a part of this to help y'all hear this story because I'm gonna ask her some pointed questions. Now, what I love for you to do is hit the subscribe button on the video, please do. Hit the like one on this video because boom, this is gonna blow your mind. It's gonna be something that you didn't know, hadn't read, hadn't seen. She gonna tell us something that she ain't told nobody else. Why it's gonna get out of her. Hit the notifications bell and tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. I want you to watch my movie. I'm a filmmaker. I'm serious about this. This right here, a lot of people watch it. It's streaming on Amazon. It deals with the rise of Black business in America. Slaves who own businesses, did you know that? And who used the money to buy their freedom, did you know that? Did you know about that lady who many say was the first Black millionaire in America, which probably means around the world? Did you know that? It's in the movie. It's streaming on Amazon. Watch that. I'm going fast because I want to get to her soon. Check my book out, everybody. I'm serious. I wrote this book. I'm going to sell 1 million copies of these eventually. Black business book, slaves who own businesses, just like the movie. But did you know all the ways slaves gained their freedom? Maybe you don't, that some sued for it and won. Or how they learned how to read and write and we taught ourselves. I know a little something, let me share it with you. It's in the book. And the book is on with Amazon also, but it's on my website, businessintheblack.net. I got one more thing to tell you. I'm coming up so strong. I got my own festival in Kansas City, Kansas, Memorial Day weekend 2022. I want 1,000 of y'all to come. I'm inviting my guests. She'll be the matron of honor, boom, where the slaves walked across the Missouri River, got to Kansas City. They ended up in a town called Quindaro. They told that man, don't come over here looking for me because I'm going to shoot back. I done tasted freedom. I was so enthralled with the story. I want to go, don't want to go by myself. I want 1,000 of y'all to come with me. I'm putting the literature out this week. It's going to be on the website. Now, as you know, my favorite word is the word strong. I love it. Somebody said, come up with a word, and I came up with strong in 30 seconds. Strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace, which is the introduction to my guest today. She's a strong sister in her own right. She just got that background that gave her the basis, the floor, and the floor was high. And she took it and she ran with it in her own right. And she's on the channel. Watch out. Please introduce yourself. I really appreciate you coming on Strong Inspirations.
Well, Mr. Brogdon, thank you so much for having me on the show. My name is Introducingelia Bundles, and I am Madam C.J. Walker's great-great-granddaughter and biographer. But when I grew up, my mother was vice president of the Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company, and my dad was president of another Black hair care company, Summit Laboratories. So I grew up in a household of entrepreneurs.
I love it.
And Madam Walker's story was around me, but it wasn't the center of my life. My mother was wise enough not to overwhelm me with it. The silverware that we used every day had Madam Walker's monogram on it, and I would go with my mother to her office and see her at work and see the ladies in the factory mixing the Walker products and all of those things. But my real passion was to be a writer.
Okay,
I loved writing, and I started.
You know, you watch me. I don't mean no disrespect. I got to ask you a couple questions about you. Where did you grow up?
So I was just getting ready to say I grew up in Indianapolis.
Right.
And which is where the Walker Company was based. Right, and I started writing at a very early age. All right, and I became a journalist.
Before you get, trust me, watch this. You grew up, did you grow up thinking that you were more privileged?
Absolutely. I mean, I certainly knew that I was very fortunate to have parents who were both educated. But, you know, interestingly for me, my parents had very different backgrounds. My dad's parents were not educated people. They were laborers. They came from Kentucky. My dad's father worked for the Pennsylvania Railroad doing labor work.
Yeah.
My dad was only the second child of 9 in his family to go to college.
Okay.
And my mother's family, on the other hand, was the Walker family. But in addition to that part of the family, my mother's father's family were people who were, I was a 4th generation college graduate because my great-grandfather on my mother's father's side of the family had been valedictorian of his class at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And his mother had gone to Oberlin, and her father had been a businessman and elected to state office in Arkansas during Reconstruction. So I didn't know all of those details growing up, but basically when you say, did I know I was privileged? Yes, I knew that I had a lot of advantages.
Okay.
I also knew that there was a lot expected of me and that it would not be enough to just be somebody's great-great-granddaughter, that I needed my own accomplishments.
Did some other kids tease you thinking that you were better?
Yeah, you know that happened.
and they said because Madam C.J. Walker, was that the joke?
Well, you know, I don't think that they even really knew that much about Madam C.J. Walker. It wasn't so much that, but you know, we lived in a nice house, and
I got you.
You know, so yes, I mean, and that is, I mean, part of the reason. The last thing in the world that I, you know, wanted to do was walk around saying I'm Madam Walker's great-great-granddaughter, because kids, you know, kids don't want to be. You know,
is that pressure on you?
Well, you know what? It wasn't really pressure on me because my mother knew that it was better to not make it a big deal. Okay. And I've had this conversation with some other people who have famous relatives. And I just did a panel for the Association for the Study of African American Life and History with Michelle Duster, who is Ida B. Wells's great-granddaughter, and with Kenneth Morris, who is a descendant of both Frederick Douglass and Booker T. Washington. So people always want to know, did you think you were special? Did you think you were this and that? And we all grew up with parents who understood to put it in context and to make us understand, yes, this is a very nice thing. You should be proud of it, but you need to have your own accomplishments and your own skills and your own education.
Okay. And so as a result, do y'all sit around the dinner table and they tell you, how other people say they heard stories?
Not really. I mean, we really literally did not sit around the dinner table talking about Madam Walker by any means. But, as a kid, you absorb things. And as I say, the silverware that we used every day had Madam Walker's monogram. Well, that's kind of, that's an unusual thing.
Oh, no question.
You don't go and talk to people about it. But yes, I knew that. I knew that my mom was working at the Walker Company. Many of my friends' mothers were school teachers or, they did other things, but that was pretty unusual to have a mom who was vice president of a company. So that was unusual.
Yeah.
The baby grand piano in our living room had belonged to Aurelia Walker, Madam Walker's daughter. So yes, there were things around me, but it was not made a big deal because I think you don't want to overwhelm kids with like something, because like, what are you going to, I didn't feel like I had to live up to anybody else's. What I felt like I had to do, because my parents were a stronger influence on me than, a great-great-grandmother or any great-grandparents. My influence was parents who were business people, who were leaders in the community, who gave back to the community. And so they set the example for me that, you need to do well in school. You need to be a leader, among your peers. You need to give back. And so that was really my role model.
Yeah, I love it. Did you, here's another question. Did you ever get in trouble?
Yeah, of course.
you did some things that everybody do.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I mean, that's
I've been to the building in Indianapolis.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, I've been there.
Oh, great.
Let me ask you this. Do you know what made, and this goes into the story, what made her be who she was? I'm talking about Madam C.J. Walker. Yeah. What do you think triggered her to be like, I can dream this big?
I was trying to tell you this sort of a minute and a half version of the story, but she was born Sarah Breedlove in Delta, Louisiana, on the same plantation where her parents and older siblings had been enslaved. So the quick bio: born in 1867, but orphaned at 7, moved in with her older sister, whose husband, Sarah said, was so cruel that she got married at 14 to get a home of her own. She had her only child when she was 17, and her first husband, Moses McWilliams, died when she was 20. So she wasn't going to move back in with the sister and the cruel brother-in-law. So she moved up the Mississippi River to St. Louis, where her older brothers were. They had moved a decade earlier. So 1888 or so, she moved, and they had become barbers. But the reason they had moved is that they were part of a community where her family minister had been elected to the state Senate in Louisiana. Remember, during Reconstruction, Black folks had political power. So she'd seen that example, and her brothers and the family minister were among the people who were chased out of Louisiana because they were speaking up for their political rights. So she had some seeds planted really early, but she's still poor and uneducated. When she gets to St. Louis, she joins St. Paul African Methodist Episcopal Church, where her brothers are members, and near their barbershop. And it was the women of the church, when you get to how did she begin to dream big, the women of the church in the choir and the missionary society saw some spark in this Sarah Breedlove McWilliams and began to give her a vision of herself as something other than an illiterate washerwoman. And she observed them. The National Association of Colored Women met in her church in 1904 during the World's Fair. And then she began to just take those lessons of those women. So when her hair began to fall out, Her brothers were barbers. She learned something from them. She learned a little bit from Annie Malone, for whom she sold products, but then she took it to her own level. But it was seeing women work together in the National Association of Colored Women, in the Missionary Society, in the choir, that really, I think, gave her this sense of organizing and developing a business.
Let me ask you, what is the difference here? Is there luck, or is there, here goes my question. Did she get lucky, or she said, okay, I got an idea, and then I'm getting this out the movie. I got an idea. You're not doing it the way I think it can be done. And so I'm gonna try it that way. Plus, I'm gonna add all the effort that I can, the fortitude, stay up late at night. I'm walking up and down the streets that you don't do, and that's what makes it grow.
Yeah, well, I will tell you, the movie is, I think, I'm sorry to say this, Octavia Spencer was great, but the movie is about 85% inaccurate. I mean, I'm just saying.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, so we can talk more about that. I can tell you why I think that, but it really distorts the story. But I'll first answer your question, how much is luck and all of that. I think that it's clearly a combination of luck, fortitude, skill, genius, all of those things, hard work, all of those things mixed together. My good friend Richelieu Dennis, who was the founding CEO of Sundial Brands, which is the parent company for the Madam Walker line. Richelieu started his business on the corner of Harlem with his grandmother's shea butter recipe. And his sort of saying is love, luck, and faith. And I do think all of those things go together, but it is mentoring. And I think among the things that the Netflix series just really does not, missed opportunity. It doesn't really show you, well, again, Octavia was great and shows that sort of tenacity. Sure. It doesn't show you the mentoring that came from women who were her friends. And the Annie Malone character is entirely not true. Really? Yes, she had a competitor, but it wasn't about colorism. Annie Malone didn't follow her to Indianapolis. I mean, that they just wanted to they thought that having a cat fight between two women would be interesting to people. I think that that was a mistake. Yeah. But it is having these women who mentored her that was key. It was having a good product. It was being able to market. She was a master, a genius at marketing. It also was very much about surrounding herself with other talented people. So where in the series, F.B. Ransom, her attorney, in real life was a real straight arrow, had taken an oath at a young age to never drink, smoke, or curse, or gamble. Okay. And in the film, they made up the character of Sweetness, who was not just a numbers runner, but a pimp. Yeah. F.B. Ransom would never have interacted with someone like that, but I guess they thought they needed the stereotype of a Black criminal. So I really objected to that in the writing process, but they left that in there. But part of the reason Madam Walker's company was stronger than her competitors is this marketing genius, this great product, this mentoring that she'd had, but also this C-suite, her executive team. F.B. Ransom is her attorney, her general counsel. Another woman named Alice Kelly, who was the manager of her factory, who led the other women, who had been a dean of girls at a Black boarding school. A number of people, her secretary, who kept the record, so that when it came time for me to tell the story, because of this strong executive team, I had literally tens of thousands of records, letters, business records, photographs, to use to tell the story, to document it. That's quite unusual for a Black business or a woman-owned business.
Now, at one point, do you like it when, and is this really the case? Was she really the first Black millionaire woman?
Yeah, I think it's very hard to fully document that, but one of the things that I know that we can say about her, because we have all of these records, is that when she died in 1919, Madam Walker's estate and her assets were worth $1 million. Right. Between the value of her company, the real estate that she owned, the other assets that she had, she was a millionaire. I think that there are other people who, say they were millionaires, who believe they were millionaires, but they can't document it in the way that we can.
She was very flamboyant too, wasn't she?
Well, I think her daughter was flamboyant, though her daughter is totally misrepresented in the Netflix series. I mean, I just think
really?
that it was, yeah, I'll tell you about that too if you want to know. But I would not say that Madam Walker was flamboyant, but she was confident. She liked to dress well.
Yeah,
so
I get that.
She had beautiful clothes. But she was probably more understated than flamboyant, but her daughter was very flamboyant.
Yeah, because I get that. The flamboyant is what we get when you hear about the Maginot, the big house and her driving with the car. And I kind of thought she was, which helped sales. Because was her business like a pyramid type thing?
It really wasn't a pyramid. It was more, it wasn't so much pyramid as it was just direct sales. It wasn't like what is the name of that?
Or something
it wasn't like Amway where you get agents and then you get a portion of what they're doing. It was directly, the products went directly to the sales agents, and so whatever they made themselves was their income. And that was, when you think about that generation of women, African-American women. Most women were not working outside the home, though many Black women were, but they were doing domestic work, cooks, laundresses, maids, sharecroppers, maybe a few school teachers. But women, Black women who were working in domestic work they were business women in a sense. They were accustomed to their skills and their services, getting paid for those skills and services. So being able to sell products to help other Black women gave them an independent income separate from having to work for white people.
Let me see. I guess the next question: Why move to Indianapolis? What was that? The backstory to that?
Right. So while the thing again, self-made really. I'm just sorry. There's just so much that I would have changed. But
really?
She was in St. Louis, and she was really divorcing the second husband, John Davis. So, there were 3 husbands, I think in Self-Made there too, but Moses McWilliams was her first husband. He died. Second husband, John Davis.
Which one is Blair Underwood?
Blair is CJ Walker.
The second husband.
Yeah, he's the third one. So the first one was Moses McWilliams. The second was John Davis, and the third one was CJ Walker, and that's who Blair Underwood plays.
Okay.
But she was in St. Louis. She had met CJ. He was working for a newspaper. Her friends, some friends of hers, owned the newspaper. So that again, that's another sort of interesting story. But she moves from St. Louis to Denver, and where she has a sister-in-law, widowed sister-in-law, and 4 nieces. And then Charles Joseph Walker travels to Denver a few months later, and they get married. But she really starts her business in Denver, but Denver has a small Black population, so she can't really scale up because there aren't that many customers. So then she and CJ start traveling, and they go to Oklahoma and Kansas and Texas, and she's selling the product. She's already marketing and talking to preachers and all of that. So then they settle in Pittsburgh. In 1908, she opens her first beauty school, and then they go from Pittsburgh to Indianapolis. The reason she goes to Indianapolis is, it was called the Crossroads of America. A lot of trains went through the city every day. And for somebody who had a mail order business, this was a great location to ship your products. We talk about the supply chain right now. She needed a place that was easy to ship things. It also had 3 Black newspapers. And one of them was a nationally distributed newspaper. The Pittsburgh Courier didn't come along until about a decade later. But she was friends with George Knox, who had the Indianapolis Freeman, which was kind of like a Black USA Today. And the Pullman porters would take those papers and, if they were going to San Francisco or Boston or Detroit or Atlanta, her ads were in those papers. So she was already, she didn't have Instagram, but she knew how to communicate. But Indianapolis was a good base to do business.
Yeah, I love it. So let's go back a little bit. Did she have an education?
So she had very little formal education. When she was in Louisiana, the cruel brother-in-law wasn't going to let her go to school, but the schools were really pretty rudimentary because of the backlash after Reconstruction, where Black folks had political office and political power and had tried to start schools. Once the Ku Klux Klan came in and pushed all of that out of the way, there really weren't schools for Black kids. But once she got to St. Louis, this is where the mentoring with the women in the church comes in. The church was educating, adults who they had night school, because they did have a number of Black schools with Black principals. And so while they're educating the kids, they're also educating this first generation out of slavery adults who want to be educated. So she took some night school classes and she learned some etiquette and she learned how to behave from these more middle-class women in the church. But her education was self-taught. As she became, more successful, one of the reasons she hired Alice Kelly, the lady who became the manager of her factory, who had been at a Black boarding school, was because Alice Kelly, in some ways, was a tutor for her. She was always improving.
Because it's pretty good to on the formal education that you cite, for her to be able to understand contracts and pricing and all that thing. On one hand, you had to depend on some people to not tell you bad information, and then have a good sense to understand it somehow.
Well, and that you're absolutely right. And that's why F.B. Ransom in real life was so critical to her, because he was educated from Mississippi, but educated, and I can't think of the name of the Black school in Tennessee, but then he studied law at Columbia. And he was working as a red cap, that part is accurate. Mm. But he was very much about protecting her from unscrupulous people. So he made sure that she was protected from people like Sweetness. So that would, that's what I say, that would never have happened.
How about this?
But he really kept all the T's crossed and the I's dotted.
Is there a story where somebody tried to take her business from her, or burn the plant down?
Yes, I mean, there are in fact, I think with anybody who's in business, there were white companies who were from time to time trying to buy her out.
Yeah.
And CJ, now another part of me, Blair is a wonderful man. I really like him personally, but the character that he plays, they exaggerated it, but it is true that CJ Walker did have an affair with one of her agents. And then after he married that person, he tried to start a separate company using the name Madam CJ Walker, and Mr. Ransom, the attorney, said, this is cease and desist. You're not able to do that. Oh. And then there were other people who would mix up some products on their stove and put them in tins that had Madam Walker. So Mr. Ransom had to intervene from time to time to protect her trademark.
Yeah. I interviewed a guy here from the Kansas City Black Negro League Baseball. And beside the Negro League Baseball, she was the largest there was at any point in time.
Well, I think certainly the insurance companies, North Carolina Mutual and Atlanta Life, those were the insurance companies were quite big, so they did quite well.
Being a woman, all those are men operations. Being a woman, that had a whole nother dynamic that she had to deal with, I'm sure.
It did. And then she and Annie Malone, her real life competitor, both of them were very successful businesswomen. Both were philanthropists. Again, I think Madam Walker is more remembered than Annie Malone because of the C-suite that she created and because of some of the gifts that she gave and building the house in Irvington. But they were both very successful. And then a little bit later was the Apex company, Sarah Spencer Washington. So it was really 3 Black women-owned businesses that were leading hair care products and cosmetics within the Black community. But there was definitely, some sexism going on. One of the things, again, the movie doesn't really get it right, but Madam Walker did go to the 1912 National Negro Business League Convention with Booker T. Washington.
Yeah.
And he was not going to give her a chance to speak. And she stood up. And I think her real words were much better than the script. And he wouldn't give her an opportunity to speak. She knew she had a great story. And so other friends said, we should hear from her. He just kind of moved on. But on that third and final day of the conference, when it was clear he wasn't going to give her a chance to speak, she stood up at her seat and she said, "Surely you are not going to shut the door in my face. I am a woman who came from the cotton fields of the South. From there, I was promoted to the wash tub. From there, I was promoted to the kitchen. And from there, I promoted myself into the business of manufacturing hair goods and preparations. And I have built my own factory on my own ground." Now, she confronted him, but the piece of the story, she didn't have that backstage thing where he was just a horrible misogynist, because his wife was very strong. So he would have known better than to talk to a woman like that.
Oh,
but
really?
The next year, he invited her back as a keynote speaker. And by the time he died in 1915, there was a mutual respect between the two, and the families remained friendly through the next generations. But yes, he was a man of his time, but Madam Walker, sort of, spoke truth to power, and would not back down. But yes, as a woman, she experienced some backlash, surely.
Do you know this? Did her parents see her success?
No, because she was orphaned at 7. So she was born in 1867.
So that meant that they died somehow?
They died. Yeah, they died when she was 7 years old. And that's why she had to move in with this sister-in-law, with his sister and brother-in-law. So yeah, her parents did not see her succce.
How about this? Did the sister and brother-in-law try to work in the company? And how
Well, yeah, well, I don't know. The brother-in-law just kind of, I don't know what happened to him. I've done the family genealogy, and he just kind of disappears. But the sister, she's just like that, can't get her act together. But Madam is, trying. She's like one of those family members that's always got the handout. And she helped her, but she was always looking for some help.
Yeah, I can't imagine. You got one of them in the family.
Always.
Yeah, there's no question, and no slight on that regard.
Yeah.
What happened towards the end? The business it flourished for how long? And the business never ended. Now, again, I just have to say I just want to do a little sidebar here on the Netflix series. So A'Lelia Walker, I think Tiffany Haddish is hilarious, but the way that the role was written was not really true to who A'Lelia Walker was. It just kind of made her kind of a goofball. She didn't have a girlfriend named Esther. They had her singing. Well, I will just tell you, when I interviewed Alberta Hunter, the famous blues singer in the 1980s, and she was friends with A'Lelia Walker, one of the things she said to me was, A'Lelia Walker had a great singing voice. She also had a lot of friends who were very talented, so she didn't try to become a singer. So I don't know why why the showrunners they made her more a socialite, didn't they?
Yeah, but in fact, she was a person who enjoyed giving parties, but she and her mother shared that interest in Black entertainers and in entertaining and in having great dinner parties. They did that together. That was a bond between the two women. They loved music. They had been exposed to music in St. Louis. Their church, Sarah Breedlove was in the choir. Their choir director was an organist who was a classically trained opera tenor. Ragtime was happening all around them for a while. When they were really poor, they lived across the alley from Tom Turpin's Rosebud Cafe. So they had been exposed to music. They loved music. And so that bonded the two women together. When Madam Walker died in 1919.
And she died from what, man?
So she had high blood pressure. So it was essentially kidney failure during a period of time before people really, the medical science was just learning about the relationship between high blood pressure
and she was how old?
Failure. So she was 51.
So she was young.
She was quite young. She was quite young. Right. So she, when Madam Walker died, Alelia had been trying to, it's hard to be the child of a famous person, especially a person who is an original in the way that Madam Walker was. So she and my grandmother were in South America during Madam's last illness. She was trying to develop the business in South America. And her mother got sick. And so they come back after Madam dies. And Alelia is really, she is really obviously devastated by her mother's death and makes a series of, some unwise decisions. But Mr. Ransom and Alice Kelly and the others are really running the day-to-day operation because she's in New York by this point. And so the company continues to thrive, but the Depression happens. The market crashes in 1929. So where they had been making, $500,000, which was a big amount in, 1919, by 1931, the sales were like a tenth of that. So it wasn't the story, Alelia Walker spent all the money. It was that they had just built a new building, a new factory in Indianapolis, the building that you've seen.
Yeah.
The sales had really, dropped off precipitously. So that was a struggle, but they still stayed in business. And by the 1980s, the Walker Company was no longer a major player. Remember, I said my mother was vice president of the company. My dad was president of another Black hair care company after he had worked for the Walker Company for a couple of years after my parents married. But he was hired away to be president of Summit Laboratories. Summit Laboratories, like Soft Sheen and like Johnson Products, was making chemical hair straighteners. So it was in the same way that we've seen newspapers disrupted by the internet. The companies that were making the press and curl style of hair care were disrupted by the companies that were doing chemical straightening.
I got you.
So the Walker Company was like no longer a major player. So then it stayed in business. The rights to manufacture hair care products using the Walker name were sold to another company in 85. Okay. These particular people owned that trademark for about 30 years. And the company was, it was in existence, but it wasn't, thriving. And then Richelieu Dennis, the founding CEO of Sundial Brands, bought the trademark and has brought it back to life.
Now, just a couple more questions, if you don't mind. At the high point, she had so many products. She had a beauty school, because I've interviewed a lady, she's in my documentary, who attended her beauty school.
Great.
So she had a beauty school, she had a hair salon.
So the company was where she'd been in Denver, then she was in Pittsburgh, and then in Indianapolis, and her daughter had opened an office in New York. So Indianapolis was the headquarters. There was a branch in Pittsburgh and a branch in Harlem. Eventually, after Madam Walker's death, there were branches in Kansas City and Dallas and Atlanta and several other places. But during her lifetime, company headquartered in Indianapolis, they manufactured 5 key products, the original products. And then right before she died, they added 5 skincare products.
Okay.
Over time, using the Walker label, there were some other products, but yes, and she had beauty schools, but she would do franchises in a way. If you graduated from a Walker beauty school and you had a Walker diploma, that gave you the right to open a beauty salon, to call yourself a Madam Walker agent. So you might see photographs of people standing in front of their salon and will have Madam C.J. Walker Beauty Salon painted on the window. But that credential gave you the right to use that name.
Yeah, that was smart. And then she had the home. She lived in Indianapolis and then eventually moved to New York.
Right. So she was in Indianapolis. 1910 is when she arrived in Indianapolis. Her daughter was running the office in Pittsburgh after she moved to Indianapolis. But her daughter said, Harlem is where we need to be. And so in 1913, she bought a building. Her mother helped her buy a building on 136th Street near Lenox. And she opened that and had it designed by Vertner Tandy, the Black architect who was one of the founders of Alpha Phi Alpha. Ooh. And that became a centerpiece of their business. So in New York and Indianapolis. And then as Madam Walker's health was beginning to fail, her daughter, Amelia Walker, persuaded her that she should move to New York. The company remained headquartered in Indianapolis, but Madam Walker moved to New York in this beautiful townhouse on 136th Street. And then soon after, she commissioned Vertner Tandy, the same architect who designed the house in Irvington. And that house is now is a National Historic Landmark.
So what, a couple more questions. What are the historical markers in her honor? I know there's the building in Indianapolis, I suspect.
Building in Indianapolis is a National Historic Landmark. The house in Irvington is National Trust for Historic Preservation National Treasure, as well as a National Historic Landmark. There are streets that are named after Madam Walker. That block of 136th Street between Lenox and 7th is Madam Walker and Amelia Walker Place. There is now a street in Delta, Louisiana, that was dedicated on Juneteenth this year, named after Madam Walker. There's a street in Indianapolis called Breedlove Lane in a new tech park. So there are different places around the country that, and Delta, Louisiana has a marker or a plaque.
Okay.
So there are places I'm very happy to say where she is on.
I love it. One more tip, I keep coming up with these questions.
That's
so
all right.
Let's say she started the company at what age, and then she passed at 51. So the height of it was when she was in her 30s and 40s?
Well, she was a washerwoman until she was 38.
Oh,
so
really?
Yeah, so it was late, that's why it's never too late.
I love it.
To start. So yes, 38 is when she started. And so it was a real short period of time from the time she started to the time she died.
That's only 13
years. I would say that, the height of her, it was once she was in Indianapolis, she was just beginning to just explode.
Yeah.
And then the move to New York and building Villa Lawaro really, made the world know who she was.
Are there things that that you have of hers? Like, do you have some of her clothes, or you know what I mean? I know you got photos and maybe some silverware, that kind of thing.
Sure. The shawl, there's the famous picture of Madam Walker where she's wearing a shawl that was taken by Addison Scurlock. I donated that shawl to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. I have some furniture and
really?
Okay. Yeah, so some china, some silverware, that kind of thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. When you walk down the streets in certain circles, they say, "Hey, go to Madam C.J. Walker's great granddaughter." Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. I try to live my life so that I'm telling the story to inspire other people. So I'm not looking for that kind of attention.
Yeah, because so at some point you say, "Hey, man, just quit telling." Okay, that's who I am, and because you are a journalist and in television, and that was your career path.
That's right. Yeah. So I think I really I do have to say I think that it is really kind of sad if the only thing somebody can say about themselves is that they're related to a famous person. So that was never enough for me.
I love it.
And so for me, I really am, I feel very grateful that my parents, really encouraged me to be my own person. And that I was able to have a 30-year career as a network television news producer at ABC and NBC and an executive. So that was 30 years where I really established myself as a journalist. But the other part of it is that storytelling and those skills that I learned professionally have allowed me to tell Madam Walker's story, and the leadership skills that I both learned from my parents and that I was able to learn as a professional in corporate America have not only helped me to write the book and tell the story, but also to have some leadership roles on some nonprofit foundations and to be able to give back in that way.
Right. Well, last question, maybe I'll say this. You said that the movie didn't really tell it right. Would you want to do another movie to tell it differently?
Yeah, I'm already working on some other things. And, again, it's a double-edged sword. As I say, I was delighted that Octavia Spencer was in that role.
Yes.
But one of the things that, is sort of a truism about Hollywood is that with the right people, they who understand and who respect history and who are truly creative, you can tell the stories. And our stories as Black people have not generally been well told by Hollywood. We end up being stereotyped.
No, there's no
End up
question.
sort of fitting into, kind of just cliches. And so I was hoping that this story would be told in a different kind of way. I was kind of, as I've said, I wrote an article for The Undefeated last summer. And one of the things that occurred to me, I said, I was hoping for Hidden Figures. And instead, I feel like I got more Real Housewives of Atlanta.
Whoa. Okay.
So I'm just saying that I was looking for something inspirational and not something that was centered on a manufactured cat fight between two women. So
because at the end of the day, when they tell these stories specifically about Black people, it's got to be some pain and anguish. Her story doesn't necessarily doesn't have that. She had some husband issues and that kind of thing.
Well,
but it doesn't end with a pain and anguish.
I think it had pain and anguish, but I think there were real life things that happened that I would have emphasized more than this sort of fake fight between her and Annie Malone over skin color, which wasn't true.
Yeah, somebody said Annie Malone was kind of darker complected.
Yeah, that's right. I'm just telling you that it was really, they entirely made that up.
Yeah.
It was totally fake. But I am working on other things. Again, Octavia was great. It is as folks say, a minor miracle when something gets made in Hollywood. But if I were to do this over again, I would, the next time I do something, believe me, as I'm working on these other projects, I will have much more say over who the writer is, who is involved. Because I really think there are people who get the history, and I'm not, I appreciate, I value and honor the skills that other people have who really know what they're doing in Hollywood, who know what they're doing on Broadway. I'm the person who does the research, who writes the books, who cares about the facts. But I also respect the fact that in order to tell a story, sometimes you have to create composite characters. You have to create things that create tension and all of that. I'm totally on board with that. What I don't like is changing the core values of our historical figures. I think that our ancestors deserve to be portrayed as their core values.
I love it. Do you have a picture of her on the wall?
Absolutely, right behind me. This is Madam Walker here. Absolutely. This is the picture for the original product container. So I have tons of photos. I'm very fortunate. Again, that the people who work for the company, as well as my grandfather, saved lots of things. So that is what allows me to tell the story.
Yeah, I love it. As we close, one last question. Is there a question that I have not asked you, or something? I know you've, anything come to mind?
Well, I think what I would like for people to remember about her, if you've seen Self-Made, then that means you know her name, and you might have a feeling that she was a strong woman. But it's not really her story. It's kind of the story that was the imagination of the head writer and the showrunners. But I would love for people to read my book, On Her Own Ground.
You got a copy of the book? Yeah.
It's right. Yeah. So this is the cover of the book right here, On Her Own Ground: The Life and Times of Madam C.J. Walker.
Yeah.
You can order it on my website, aleliabundles.com. You can order it on Amazon. I also recorded the audiobook. So if you don't have time to sit down and read a long book, it's there. I've done 3 other books about her. Again, those are on my website at aleliabundles.com.
There you go.
So people can, maybe you can put that in when you
I will. I'll put it in the description.
Post the website. So I hope people will want to know more about her. There are also a lot of videos on my website that people can check out. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. But here's what I here's what I would love for people to know. Madam Walker is an example of our ancestors, that first generation out of slavery, who were determined that they were going to make their lives better for themselves and for their children. And that she started as a washerwoman, and she understood the struggles of other Black women who were trying to support themselves and who were trying to be independent and not have to work for white folks. And she transformed herself with the help of mentors into somebody who not only started a business, but provided jobs and income for thousands of Black women, became a philanthropist, became a political activist, who contributed money to the anti-lynching fund, who went to Washington, D.C. after the East St. Louis riot and tried to petition the president with a group of Black leaders to support legislation to make lynching a federal crime. And when she died, she gave lots of money away, but when she died, her bequest totaled $100,000, which would be several $million today. So I would like for her to be remembered as a woman who understood the struggles of other women, and then who used her wealth to make a difference for her community.
That's it. I got no more questions, everybody.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brogdon. I appreciate it.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
Unbelievable. Everybody, this is what I do with Strong Inspirations. I find these people who don't mind coming on the channel, and I let them do the talking.
Well, like you say, love Black people, you know, love Black people. That is what I see behind you.
Yes.
And that is what this is all about.
That's what it's all about. Everybody hit the subscribe button on on Strong Inspirations. Hit the like button on this video if you don't like no other video on the channel. And I'll keep giving you more. Hit the bell for when the videos come up. I do 4 or 5 of them a week. And you've been watching me, everybody. You know how this is going. This thing is moving fast. Tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. Read her book. I read a book. A book is good. That's how I was able to kind of have you some of these questions, and then I talk about her, Miss Walker, in my book, and so on and so forth. But read her book, support her efforts, and with that, I say to you, with all sincerity, please continue to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love what you're doing, keeping that name alive. I mean, everybody got some hassles in life, but it didn't end hassily, whatever that word is. And the movie don't forsake on the movie, because it brought it to light. But at the end of the day, everybody gonna pass. But in 13 years is what I count that as. From 38 to 51, that's 13 years. In 13 years, she went from I'm starting out to what you know of as the first Black millionaire woman in America.
Right.
And that might not be Black woman, that might be white woman too.
Again, at least we can document that.
We can document that. That's the story. Boom shakalaka. Thank you for coming on the channel, everybody. I hate to say goodbye, but I'm gonna have to. That's it. Bye-bye, we out. Thank you.
Thank you.